Hi everyone, I'm Josh and welcome to Josh Wright Piano TV. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to go over a concept that I've been thinking a lot about lately. I love studying Stoicism. I love hearing what all of you are going through in your own studies and in your own musical journeys, and kind of a culmination of a lot of emails I've received, comments I've received, things that I've personally studied with reading and other bits of research that I've done into those topics have led me to want to discuss the concept that you cannot be everything to everyone. I'm going to use myself as the example just because I'll be sharing both bad and good things. I don't want to throw anyone else under the bus, so I'll use myself in this example. In the examples of performing, teaching, and then just some general things in life. And how my mental state has transformed over years of doing this, of being in the public eye on YouTube, as a performer, in private lessons as a teacher, and then just as a human being in society. We'll take performing first. I excelled at performing in my early youth. I loved it. I did a lot of competitions. Was I the best? Certainly not. But I was competing at a very high level. I did a lot of national and international piano competitions. They weren't the biggest competitions when I was younger. I did a few really big ones in my 20s. But people were constantly comparing me to people who were better. Now, this is not a plea for you guys to leave comments like, "You're so great," or also to say, "Oh, you suck." It's neutral. What we're describing here are just facts. Was I the best? Certainly not. Was I competing among some of the best pianists around? Yes, I was. So, and I can point to a lot of those pianists by name. I won't point to too many, but when you compete even in the preliminaries at the International Chopin competition and, Daniel Trifonov is there, or 5 years later, Kate Liu and Eric Liu and some of these people who I greatly, greatly admire, and Xiangjin Cho and Lucas Genyusas and so many others, I can confidently say, yes, I was among the best, competing among the best pianists that I knew. So to even be invited was a great honor. So it was easy to just compare yourself to the best and say, I suck as a performer because I'm not as good as this person is. But I pushed myself as far as I could, as much as I could, while still pursuing a lot of other interests like teaching and recording these videos and teaching online, and also having a family life at home. So I was happy with where I was at. But to a lot of people, I wasn't enough. Or to many people, I was more than enough. They're like, I aspire to be like you. And so you're sitting somewhere in this realm. You're always going to find someone who's better than you. And then you'll find plenty of people who aspire to your same level. So you can't get puffed up by the people who are aspiring to be like you, but you can't get too discouraged. You can use the people who are much better than you are at the given task. In this one, we're performing, and use those as a motivation, but it shouldn't be used as a discouraging fact of, I'm so bad because I'm not as good as this person. Use yourself as the measuring stick and measure your progress. Are there areas where you're slacking off and you could do a lot better? Oh yeah, I could memorize my pieces a lot sooner than I have, or I could practice performing a lot more. The last competition I did, I only did 3 practice performances. Maybe I need to increase that to 10 or 15 before I take it to a competition, or maybe 50. I don't know, depending on how crippling your nerves are. We have a lot of videos on this channel about some strategies I've used to help calm my nerves down. The next example is teaching. For the most part, I have had positive feedback from my teaching, whether it be online through the mediums of YouTube or the Pro Practice series, or meeting people on Zoom or Skype, or just privately here in my personal studio. But I've also had a handful of students who have not liked my teaching. Some were very vocal about that. Either I wasn't hard enough on them and they weren't making the progress they wanted, or I was the meanest tyrant they've ever seen, and how could they possibly work with someone so demeaning. I was so surprised. I taught a lesson to a guy one time, and he said that. I said, okay, we kind of ignored because I asked him about a tutorial that I'd sent him, a pro practice tutorial to help him in his studies. And I said, okay, we ignored the counting this week in the video. You did a good job learning your notes, and we're starting to get a good sense of the piece, but we need to go back through and count. And he said that that was the most demeaning thing, and he could not possibly work with someone so demeaning, and we needed to end the lesson right there. So you will find very sensitive individuals. I'm not saying you need to be syrupy and sugarcoat everything you say, but some people will respond differently to your critiques. And there's other students, one of my most beloved students, I featured him on the channel before, Connor. I can be so blunt with him. I can tell him, this was not good. We need to fix this. We need to fix this. And I also praise him a lot on things he's very good at because he's a brilliant young pianist. But we have a mutual understanding that I love him. I am going to always look out for his best interests, and I'm going to push him to be the best he can. But as a teacher, you also have to be aware to not break your students down, but you also have to push them because a lot of students are being done a disservice by a teacher who never really critiques them. So it's a balancing act, and each student is a little bit different. I can be harder on certain students, and I have to go easier on certain students. Sometimes when it's really early on, like that example I gave of the unfortunate lesson was very early on. I think it was the second lesson or something. And he didn't understand that I was giving that advice to him from a place of love, but that's okay. You live and learn. Another student, I remember he was playing, this was maybe 15 years ago or so, he was playing the third Chopin etude. And we were going over some concepts with rubato, and he was just not wanting to do any of the suggestions that I said. So I said, would you like to just keep it the way you're playing it? Because it seems like you're happy with that and you're not really wanting to incorporate that. Well, of course I want to incorporate that, your ideas. That's why I'm here. And I said, okay, let's try this. And he's like, well, I don't like that. So you'll find difficult people that are very hard to work with. But for the most part, if your students understand where you're coming from, you can work with them. But again, you can't be everything to everyone. There are one student who I absolutely adored, and I still love him to this day. He doesn't take lessons anymore. He went to college for something else. But there came a point we excelled in lessons. He was flying through levels and pieces and just loving it. And we kind of hit a roadblock, and I was trying my hardest, but I could not motivate him for some reason to get out of his own head with certain things. He was getting more nervous. And I said, you know what? I think you need a change of scenery. Why don't you go take lessons with my wife, Lindsay, who taught his younger brother? And he suddenly excelled again. He just needed a fresh perspective. The same thing goes with a lot of teachers. That's why I find it phenomenal that I can still go see Susan Duhlmeyer. I still see her a few times a year. I've been going to her since I was 9 years old. I'm turning 37 this year. So that just shows you what an amazing teacher she is, that almost 30 years later, I can still get a lot out of lessons. I'd say after 5 or 10 years, a lot of times a switch is needed and welcome. I never felt that way with any of my teachers. I was very fortunate to have the teachers I did. However, I do think that that's a healthy thing and should be explored. You should explore different avenues. So as a teacher, if you've experienced, like, I couldn't work with this student very well, remember, you can't be everything to everybody, but I would challenge you as a teacher to try to fill the needs of the students. That's why in my pro practice videos, we go over such a wide range of concepts. A lot of people like the interpretive, voicing, shaping, rubato concepts. Other people need help with fingering or counting. Other people love to hear about wrist rotation. I've had so many positive comments come back about this helped me here, this helped me here. And then sometimes you'll get a random comment, like somebody said, oh, your Liebeslide tutorial was garbage because in bar 70 you didn't discuss the rotations like I wanted you to. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read your mind. So you do get funny instances like that where you just simply laugh it off and you think, I couldn't read your mind on that. If you were my private student, of course we could discuss that, no problem, but I can't fulfill everything. And my teaching also changes over the years. I feel like I've become a better teacher over all of these years because I've been exposed to more repertoire, obviously, and more ideas and more students. But still, some people like my old videos the most. They said, oh, you were performing so much back then in competitions. I liked that. And most people like my videos now because they're a lot higher quality production, but some people like the old things, so you never know. Finally, the concept of just being a human being, this is probably the most relevant for everybody watching this because everyone's going to have their differing fields of expertise. You have to be really grounded and solid in your own convictions. How do you feel about certain things in life, and how can you progress with those things? It's so interesting how people will judge you on completely irrelevant things. So people will come to this channel and for the most part, people are very supportive in this community. I feel like we've cultivated a very positive community both here and in the private Pro Practice Facebook group. It's been great. And I have no complaints at all. And I know that if you're in the public eye, you're going to get trolls. But people will say things like, they'll comment about my appearance. So they'll say, oh, we hated your long hair. We're so glad you cut it to be short. Or people will say, please bring back the long hair. You look like a dork with your short hair. Or they'll say, wow, you used to be way too skinny. Or, wow, ever since you started working out, you got fat. Or whatever it might be, which is hilarious because I'm in better shape now than I was earlier on in my videos. But apparently they feel the need to comment about my weight. So, because that's so relevant in a piano tutorial. But you have to laugh these things off because that person obviously is not coming from a place of intellect or a good mental state if they're commenting on things like that or leaving hateful comments. So remember, we talked a little bit about a few weeks ago about creating an inner circle of trust of people that you trust. So and a lot of you have said, please keep making videos like this. So that's why I'm making another one today about your mental state, how you can't be everything to everybody. People expect me to be Daniel Trifonov, to teach like Sergei Babayan, and to be a supermodel. I can't do any of those things, especially simultaneously, okay? So, but I do my best to excel in each, not the supermodel area, I just try to stay healthy, but I do my best to excel in performing while still teaching and also keeping healthy family relationships, trying to stay healthy in my own physical body. I think that's so important. I've talked a lot on this channel about how ever since I started working out maybe 6 years ago, my mental clarity has really improved with lifting heavy weights and increasing my physical strength. It's helped me a lot in performing. So just keep these things in mind. Don't try to please everyone. If you become a people pleaser, you will always find people who let you down. If you are grounded in your purpose of what you're trying to achieve, and that can still be fluid. You can still, hey, I want to continue getting better at this. It's not just like, this is what I am and I'm never going to change. You can still progress, but being grounded in where you're at, where you want to go, and not drifting aimlessly, like with the wind of other people's opinions and emotions. These concepts, as I've studied these in my own personal like reading and studies, and also have heard from so many of you and read a lot of comments about how you've dealt with these things, it's helped me to become more grounded myself. So thank you all for your support of this channel. Leave a comment in the description below about maybe a trial that you've had in your musical journey or in life and some things that you've done to overcome those. I feel like if everybody, I obviously don't have all the answers. So if we all can share our own insights, I think that will be very helpful. If any of you have any questions, my email is josh@joshwrightpiano.com. Thank you for joining me. Hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, and like this video so that it can be shared with as many people as possible. I'll also leave a few links to some additional resources in the description below. One of them is for a free webinar containing 10 of my favorite tips to help take your playing to a higher level. These are tips I use every day in my performing and my teaching, or my practicing and my teaching. I will also leave a link for my paid courses if you'd like to go even deeper than this channel goes over. And finally, I'll leave a link for my gear kit, all the gear I use in this studio to film these videos. Have a great week. Good luck in your practice sessions.